I remember the sound. It wasn't wind or the moor's low murmur. It was my mother's voice, and she'd been dead for 2 years. The first syllable came like a brittle whisper, tearing through the white, the way paper rips under cold fingers. Son. It took me a second to believe it wasn't memory, wasn't grief, but something outside me, calling my name. My torch shook. The beam struck the milky air and rebounded in a glitter of moisture, as if I'd lit a handful of powdered bone. I wasn't the only one hearing it. To my left, Stuart stopped winding his 16mm Bolex and began to cry. "Maggie," he breathed. His sister's name. She'd died 3 winters before. On Drumlin Moor, the fog didn't roll. It listened. It lowered its tone to coax, raised it to plead, repeated a remembered phrase like a strip of film caught in a loop. You took 1 step, then another, just 1 more. And when the peat yielded underfoot, it was like pressing your chest into a wet lung. What entered your mouth wasn't air. It was weight, a humid embrace that refused to let go. I was a myth hunter, but there were no legends out there that night, only a promise that spoke with the dead. Before I begin, I want to speak to you, watching on the other side of the screen. Type in the comments which country you're watching from. I mean it. I'll read them all. Brazil, Portugal, United States, Japan. And if you breathe in stories like this, subscribe and turn on all notifications. What I'm about to tell you lives in a spool of film, in pages buckled by damp, and in the scars I feel whenever the sky turns white, and the wind learns how to say my name. Breathe in slowly and come with me. They called it Drumlin Moor, a stretch of heather and peat north of Crianlarich, where the hills look like the spines of sleeping animals, and the wind, when it's cross, steals warmth from inside your bones. Stuart and I took the club's lorry off the narrow road at dusk, equipment lashed beneath a tarpaulin, tripods, tins of 16mm stock, a wire recorder with a stubborn spool, a fold-out map that never stayed flat, and my black-bound notebook, its pages stippled with the grease of a dozen hunts. Fog will sit low tonight, old McTavish warned at the pub where we'd left a deposit for 2 beds. And when it sits, it listens. If you go, you come back early. Early, you hear? His wife, Agnes, didn't cross herself, not in a moor like this, but she pressed the corners of a tea towel into her palms until her knuckles shone. We'd filmed other stories, lights walking the loch, a ruin where whispers kept to the corners, radio voices chewed by interference. But in Drumlin, reports came with dates and names. A shepherd swore the fog called him by a nickname no one alive used. A schoolteacher heard his father apologize in Gaelic for the belt lashings of childhood. The same cadence, the same breath at the end of a hard G. A girl, no more than 14, followed her dead grandmother's coughs into the reed beds and came back with both shoes filled with peat water and a silence in her that never thawed. We parked where the track died into ruts. The moor lay ahead like a bad thought you can't dismiss. Night didn't fall so much as congeal. The horizon erased itself, and the first fingers of mist reached for our boots. Set the tripod here, I said. Shoot wide. If it comes, I want the edge. Stuart nodded, jaw clenched. His sister's anniversary was a week away. I should have insisted we wait. Instead, I wiped the lens with my sleeve, drew a cross on the viewfinder with my thumbnail, and told myself the story needed to be told right now. While March still remembered winter, while the ground held its water like a secret, we tested the wire recorder. The spool purred, metal on metal. I spoke a timestamp, the date, the temper of the air. Wind at force 2, visibility fair, descent of fog likely. I laughed into the mic to keep my voice from trembling. Stuart framed the moor, one long mouthful of empty. The fog arrived like a mood swing. One heartbeat we saw our breath. The next, the moor wore a whitening veil and the reeds lost their outlines. Sound went odd, as if the air had cotton in its ears. Our torch beams became rods of light, clean-cut cylinders that revealed dots of moisture, and then nothing at all, like a stage trick, ruined by a wall of smoke. "This is it," I said too brightly. "If it has a voice, we'll be polite and let it speak first." We waited. At first we got the old chorus of night, a plover's rasp, the tiny crackle of frost shifting in the heather, the far thud of water where the bog breathed through its own weight. Stuart's Bolex clicked as he advanced the film, a painter's patience. My pencil wrote useless observations, just to keep motion in my fingers. The wire hummed and hummed. Then it said my name. Not my given name, not the one on school rolls, but the one my mother used when she tucked me into a winter bed and warned me that the kettle would sing me awake before light. It came from ahead and slightly left, with that intimate fall in the second syllable only she had. I turned before I could stop myself, torch beam sliding over fog as if it were muslin. "Sun," she said, or the fog said, or something within the fog-shaped sound to the space in my chest where she had lived. "Sun, did you bring your scarf? It's cold." My first breath went short. My second stayed inside me like I'd swallowed the night. "Don't," Stuart hissed. His voice broke on the word. He hadn't moved the camera. "Don't step off the line." We had laid a length of rope, a muddy, honest thing, from the lorry to the tripod, and from the tripod to a fence post that stood like a gravestone at the edge of the moor. The rope wasn't for us, we'd said earlier, grinning. The rope was for the story, a prop, a visual. Now it was the only straight thing left in a world of whiteness. From the right, a woman cried, "Stuart!" The accent wore the lilt of Glasgow streets, 1930s vintage, half singing even on that single name. My friend's lips parted. He leaned. The Bolex dipped. "Maggie?" The syllables leaked out of him like heat. I put my hand on his sleeve. "We stay on the rope," I said, and I tried to make my voice the voice of every steady thing we had known. We let it talk, but we don't answer. The fog answered itself. It filled the air with our old lives. Stuart's sister laughed, a cheap cinema laugh they'd shared as children when they smuggled sweets under coats. My mother's hum vibrated at a pitch I felt in my teeth. A man I didn't recognize apologized to someone named Isla for leaving over and over, as if the repetition alone might ferry him back across the years. "Are you getting this?" I whispered to the wire. The wire whirred, obedient. But sound did not simply come from the fog. It moved in it, like figures behind frosted glass. I could track a voice's passage left to right, hear it thin and thicken, hear it pour itself into the spaces we made when we remembered. The fog, I thought, and the thought felt wrong even as it fit. The fog learns. It threw a breathy little cough, the kind my father had made before he died, a cough that bent the shoulders and pinched the eyes. I spoke aloud, though my tongue hated me for it. "Who taught you those voices?" The fog did what a child might do when caught mimicking. It denied me by giving me more. Now the chorus swelled with specificity, the scrape of a chair leg on linoleum from a kitchen in 1939, the thud of shoes in a hallway where I once blew out candles. You couldn't mistake it. If this was a trick, it was built from the bones of intimacy. The rope tugged. I looked down. Stuart had shifted his weight to the side, heel lifting off the line. The fog had pressed itself against him, bodiless but palpable, as if a room's breath were enough to move a man. "She's cold," he said, tears sudden and clean. "She says she's cold. She's dead," I whispered, and hated the cruelty in it. "You can't warm the dead." He laughed once, a small bark, unamused at everything. Maybe I'm the one who's cold. Behind him, the fence post stood with its weather-cracked face, and beyond that the moor spread itself like a sentence without punctuation. I pulled him back onto the rope's gritty line. The fog shifted its tactic. It took a story we both knew and spoke it back to us with new edges. That night in January, when we lost a hiker in the glen and found his hat, stiff with frost, on a stile. But in the fog's version, the hiker cried for his mother, and she answered, in Stuart's sister's voice, and he went to her, The fog suggested that this had already happened 1,000 times over. It suggested we might be too late for everyone but ourselves. The recorder clicked abruptly, a tooth on the gear biting air. The wire had reached the end of its spool. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the voices, because it made me feel that the only machine on my side had decided to stop listening. "Change it," Stuart said. "Turn the camera," I answered, and I don't know why I said that. Maybe I wanted the fog to feel watched. We swapped wire in a hurry. The fog, hearing our clumsy metal, lowered its own volume to a hush and then returned, as if breath were a ceremony we were all part of. When the spool ran again, it captured the one sound I wish to God it hadn't. My mother, stepping into the particular rhythm she used before a bedtime story, and starting the first line of the tale I'd asked for most often as a boy. "Once there was a ladder up the moon," she said, with that shiver of smile that the dead don't own. And the boy climbed, and climbed, and climbed. I let go of the torch without meaning to. It fell into heather and threw its cone sideways, lighting fog from beneath as if we were inside an illuminated lung. The rope burned in my hand as I clutched it. Stuart made a sound the world had no word for, half laughter, half prayer. "We should go," I said, and meant none of it. The fog came closer. It didn't move like weather. It moved like a choice. We marked the minutes by mechanical comforts, the turn of the Bolex, the soft drag of the wire, the click of my pencil when I pressed lead and found only wood. The fog didn't care. It adjusted to our instruments like a choir matching pitch. When the camera sped, the voices quickened. When the wire bobbed on a warp, the fog stuttered a consonant to match. Somewhere under the white, the moor kept time with a slow, drowned heartbeat. "Tell me your name," I said to the fog, because questions anchor a man. "Tell me yours," it replied, in my mother's voice, and then, in a single breath, in mine. The second voice stopped me. Hearing your own mouth speak from a place you're afraid to step into is a submission hold on the soul. It didn't imitate my current voice. It took the version of me that only tape knows, the frequency of fear, the way I tuck words when my jaw tightens. "Don't," I told it, which is a silly thing to tell a weather that knows you're dead. "Don't," it repeated dutifully, obligingly, like a child with a lesson. And then, softly, "Come." Stuart turned the camera. "I'm getting whirls," he said, technical refuge in his tone. "Not natural eddies. They curve to us." The rope twanged. He'd stepped forward, then back. His lips moved through a name. Maggie. I heard the fog catch it, roll it on its thickening tongue, and release it again like a bubble. "Maggie," it said, and then, "God help us." The fog gave the tiny upside laugh she used to pin on a teasing insult, a laugh that lived right behind the last syllable of E. "Listen," I tried to fill my voice with task. "We'll count 30 and then reel to the lorry. We have proof. We'll come back at dawn." The fog hates dawn. I hadn't known it, not in my bones, but the moor told me in the way the whiteness flinched at the word. "Dawn," I repeated, to taste the flinch again. It didn't flinch this time. It answered by studying me. The voices drew nearer, pared away their choir fat, found an intimacy that seatmates share on trains and lovers share across pillows. It said the words my mother never got to say because hospital rooms don't allow most of life inside. "I forgive you for leaving early that day." And I wanted, God help me, to tell her that I hadn't left early. I'd stayed outside the ward's doors longer than she ever knew, because grief takes cowardice as its coin. "Rope," I said. "Rope, rope, rope." I said it like a spell. My hand found the knot at Stuart's wrist. We had tied ourselves in a short loop as a joke when we first stepped off the gravel. "Count," I told him. "1," he said. "Good," I lied, because the number landed and slid. 2. The fog intervened on 3. It spoke from behind us in the voice of a little boy asking a teacher for permission. "Please," it said. "Please, just one thing. One more thing." And then it gave us footsteps, quick, light, long ago. The cadence of a child running down a hall we had both outgrown. I knew the sound. I saw the gray linoleum. I saw the scuffed skirting boards where school bags had bumped. The fog wasn't only a mimic, it was an archivist, curating what we did not even know we'd kept. Stuart lurched. I yanked the rope. It held, singing. He turned to me with his face like an unbuttoned door, open a crack and opening more, and whispered, "She's lost. She's dead," I corrected again, only to keep the facts clear. Death is a compass, not a kind one, but true. She's done with being lost. He closed his eyes. His mouth shaped a word I couldn't read. "Count," I said. He did not say 3. Instead, he loosened his weight and let the fog carry it, just an inch. That was all it needed. Some things hunt by patience and proximity. The fog let him take the step and then multiplied it with a pressure that felt like people in a crowd all choosing the same door. I felt the rope tighten. Then I felt the knot bite. The fog made a soft, pleased sound. Not a word exactly, but the satisfaction of a story reaching the bit where it always wanted to go. I hauled. It wasn't weight I fought, it was decision. Stuart wasn't heavy, he was busy. He reached toward a voice that knew how to say "we" exactly the way his sister had. He reached the way sleep reaches for morning, thinking it's a different kind of night. The fog did not need force, it only needed to be the shortest path between a man and his grief. The Bolex fell. Its metal clapped my shin. The lens threw a final oval of light across the white. I planted my boots and leaned back like a canal horse. The rope jerked, went slack, jerked again, and then rose, absurdly, as if the fog had found a way to be up and down at once. "Stuart!" I called, and calling in fog is like whispering into cotton. The sound went nowhere. I may as well have mouthed the word at the plaster of a sealed room. He answered with a noise that was neither agreement nor pain. It was the small breath you make when a lover touches a scar without warning. And then the fog took that breath and made a meal of it, lengthened it, widened it, lowered it, until it matched a sound I recognized. A person searching for air that wouldn't come, not choking, not drowning, something in between, as if the air itself had thickened just shy of liquid. I looped the rope around the tripod's spine, braced, and pulled. The tripod groaned. The knots I'd practiced in kitchens and fields, and once in the back pew of a church held, because rope is more honest than men. Inch by inch, the knot at Stuart's wrist slid toward me out of the milk. The fog tried to keep him without changing its nature. It pressed, it pled, it promised. But pressure, pleading, and promise are poor rivals to hemp and stubbornness. His hand came back first, fingers blue at the nails, skin lacquered with moisture. He coughed once and gave the fog a bit of itself back. I slung my arm under his and made our shapes one shape against it. The fog spoke through his sister, not scolding now, but soothing. "It's all right," it said. "Just one step more and no more cold. No more waking up into the hard thing. I don't know if we would have made it without the fence post. It gave us a landmark weight could love." I dragged Stuart along the rope like a fish a boy isn't proud to have caught, cursing names, God, film, weather, myself. Anything that made syllables so I wouldn't hear what the fog said through my mother. We broke the edge. Fog doesn't like edges. It pretends to own them, but they bruise it. The air thinned and grew, and I could hear the pipe in my own throat again, the old creak I got every winter. The lorry appeared as a suggestion, and then a fact. I bundled Stuart up the slats and into the back, slammed the tail, and turned to see if the fog would cross the ruts. It did not. It stayed exactly where the moor began, lovely as milk, hateful as forgetting. It made one last attempt at courtesy, my mother's "good night," in the exact cadence she'd used the last time she could say it to me. And then the voices slipped down as if through a drain, leaving only the thick white. In the pub, Agnes warmed bricks in the oven and wrapped them in towels for our feet. McTavish shut the door with certainty, as if that would stop a story. We placed the wire recorder on the bar and watched the tape turn as if it were our pulse. The men drinking pretended not to notice. "What did it want?" Agnes asked, because women ask the real question. "Agreement," I said, half to myself. "And the moment we give it, it takes breath as the fee." "Breath?" McTavish frowned. "Not air," I said, trying to find words that didn't exist yet. "The part of air that keeps you inside yourself." Agnes poured tea. "You'll not go back," she said, making it a statement. I looked at Stuart. He was staring at the towel around his hands, as if it might turn into skin. "We have to," he whispered. "Why?" I asked, and feared I already knew. "Because it wasn't done speaking," he said, "and because it used my voice." I slept 3 minutes and dreamed none. At dawn, the fog thinned, and the moor showed its spine again. We changed reels. We wound fresh wire. We told no one at the pub because we knew the shape of the word fools in older men's mouths. We went back. On the second morning, the moor smelled of iron filings and wet wool. Fog lay in gutters rather than sheets, as if exhausted by the night's performance. We traced yesterday's rope line, boots kissing the same grit. The fence post leaned with a kindness I hadn't noticed before. "It's quieter," I said. "It's waiting," Stuart said. The Bolex clicked. The wire hummed. Our torches made cones that didn't reach far. The fog's first voice that day wasn't kin. It was mine. "Don't come," it said. Exactly the way I'd said those words to a boy once on a cliff path, arm out, seeing the gravel shift. The fog took that warning and fed it back as invitation. "Don't. Come." The pause was the gulp a promise takes. "We're not stepping off the rope," I said, and the rope accepted the job of sentence underlining. "Then I'll come to you," said my voice from the white. A joke, almost. But fog doesn't come. It arrives. And this fog had learned a better trick. It sent us a certainty. From the left, from beyond the line, we heard a voice that didn't belong to either of us or to any of our dead. It was new. It was breathless, but not yet robbed. A woman, 30 perhaps, with the rounded vowels of Aberdeen. "Please," she said. "Please. Is anyone there?" We froze. If you've ever stood on a winter bridge and heard a child cry downstream, you know that particular paralysis, the one where all your choices are bad and your body wants to be 10 directions at once. "Help," the woman said. "My father. He's calling. I can't. The voice broke on the second "can't," like thin ice under a boot. "Recorder," I said, because doing a thing feels like saving someone, even when it isn't. "State your name," I called. "We'll come to you. Just keep speaking." "Isla," she said, very small. The fog repeated it tenderly. "Isla." And then, to us, it offered context it shouldn't have known, a photograph's worth of detail in a handful of syllables. She left her house at 6. She thought she heard the gate. Her father died last Easter. I wanted to run at the fog with a stick. I wanted to break weather with my hands. "Isla," I called. "Can you step back from the low ground? Feel for reeds with your heel. If the ground swallows, it's peat. Go to your belly. Distribute your weight." Her breath changed. It became a private thing, the kind you don't deserve to hear. The sound of someone deciding whether to fight in the way that costs. "Don't teach her," the fog said in my father's voice, gentle as a church coat. "Let her come." I don't know if we broke our rule or if the fog moved the line. I know my feet left the rope. The first step was nothing. The second sank me an inch. The third found a layer like cake under icing, too soft to trust. "Stuart," I said, "anchor me." He tied the rope to the fence post and looped it around my waist. I belly crawled the way guides had taught us in the worst bogs. Thickness the forearms, weight on ribs, boots light as apologies. The white wrapped my head and slurred distance into myth. "Isla," I called. "Speak." She did, and the fog let her voice pass through it without distortion, as if it had decided this was the best path to get me where it wanted me. "He's there," she said, sobbing a small laugh that had very little hope in it. "He says the kettle's on." A yard from her, the ground shivered. That's the only word. Shivered. The way skin tightens against cold. I spread myself wider, breath shallow. "Can you see my hand?" I asked. "I'm reaching. Take my wrist, not my fingers." Her fingers took my wrist. I closed around bone. "Good girl," I said, and wanted the words back at once. Too fatherly, too condescending, too late. The fog intervened then, not with voice, but with touch. It thickened the air in my mouth until it was almost chewable. I swallowed and felt nothing move. My chest expanded and received damp weight instead of oxygen. Isla's grip spasmed. Her nails scratched my skin. "Breathe out," I gasped. "Breathe out now, again, again. Small sips." It didn't work. The fog wasn't stealing air, it was charging for it. Every breath cost more than the last, like a debt with interest due by the second. The first payment you can make, the second you can shoulder. The third is a future you can't afford. "Pull!" I shouted, and the fog ate the word, and the rope hauled, and Isla's weight slid on the peat with a noise like skin on glass. The ground made a wet complaint. The fog made a satisfied hum. We moved 3 feet and paid for each inch with breath. Stewart took us like a fisherman committed to a line that might take the boat down with the catch. My chest burned in a way that wasn't burn, a drowning without water, a fire that refused to flame. Isla coughed once, a child's cough of all things, like a school cold, and then coughed again with a sound that shut something inside her. We came clear of the worst ground. The rope bit my waist, and the fence post took our story in its old, gentle wood. Isla collapsed with the gratitude people give a floor. The fog didn't rage. It retreated an inch and learned. That's what I felt with a certainty I didn't want. It learned. It tasted what we do for the living, just as it had tasted what we do for the dead, and it added both to its grammar. "Turn the camera," I told Stewart, but his hands were on Isla's back, counting breaths, measuring the teeter between here and away. She looked up at me through wet lashes and said, "He knew my nickname." "Who?" I asked, though I knew. "My dad." She tried to smile. "He called me a name he never used unless he'd burned the porridge and wanted me to laugh." The fog said the nickname then, soft and ridiculous and perfect, and I watched Isla's face fold. Not all traps need teeth. Some only need love to be uttered in the accent of last year. "We have to go," I said. "Now." "Just a moment," Isla whispered, and horror is often born in that innocent little phrase. The fog thickened into a white that bruised the eye. It spoke with my mother, then my father, then me, then Stewart, then Isla's newly dead, layering voices until it sounded like a cathedral filled with grief, until the moor became the nave, and we the stupid little congregation who'd brought ourselves to its mass. I stood, not bravely, not well. I stood because legs are arguments. "Enough," I said, and I kept saying it until enough stopped meaning a real thing and became a spell with only the value I gave it. We backed away on the rope. The fog followed, but would not cross the ruts. It gave us a benediction, "Good night," in 6 voices, and I hated it for its politeness more than I had hated it for its hunger. At the pub, Agnes wrapped Isla in blankets and fed her a bowl that steamed sense back into a nose. McTavish swore without aim, a litany older than the kirk. No one asked where Isla had come from. In places like that, arrivals are miracles or mistakes. Either way, you speak softly. We played the wire. If I could break a machine with my hands, I would have done it then. The recording did not give us exactly what we'd heard. It never does. It gave us enough, though. My mother's bedtime preface, Stuart's sister's little laugh, Isla's father saying the kettle's on, in a way a kettle never says itself on any stove. It gave us, here's the part that still finds me when the sky goes white, my voice telling me not to come, and then, toward the end of the reel, my voice saying, it's your turn. I hadn't said that. I promise you I hadn't. It's your turn, the voice repeated, not to me, to a version of me that the fog had practiced and polished. You knew you couldn't keep walking away with other people's dead. You brought yours with you tonight. I left the pub without asking permission from the cold. Stuart followed. Isla slept with the bowl on the table like a small moon cooling. The moor waited where it had always been, patient as the back of an old hand. I did not want to go. That matters. Choice matters. But the fog we'd met wasn't a bully. It was etiquette with appetite. It asked in the voices of the people who owned my answers. That's how doors open. At the fence post, I tied the rope without looking. The knot knew itself. Stuart placed the tripod where we had placed it before, like a stone on a grave. I switched the wire. The new spool shone with a promise that wasn't for me. The fog came when called. Son, it said. Don't, I answered, and my voice failed because refusing your dead is a muscle most men do not train. Please, it said, my father now. And for a moment I hated him for giving the fog his rough tenderness. I took 2 steps and found the peat's top skin. I lay prone and felt my ribs receive the moor's cold like an old debt. The fog reached to meet my breath. It asked for payment up front. I gave it a coin. It asked for another. I gave it. And this, I understood, was the true way the moor killed, not by swallowing a body, but by convincing a heart that the next breath was a fair price. Behind me, rope tightened. Stuart's hands held. In front of me, white widened into invitation. I thought of the first time my mother had said good night and meant goodbye. And I said very softly, so softly that only the thing that had learned me could hear, not yet. The fog paused. It had not learned not yet. It had learned no, and it had learned come, and now I had offered it a third thing, a slow promise postponed. It tasted the phrase like a new vowel. Not yet, it repeated, unsure, as if it were trying on a coat that didn't fit its shoulders. I crawled backward. The rope sang. Stuart breathed in little bites. The fog leaned. It's cold, it said, choosing her voice again. You forgot your scarf. I'll come back with it, I lied, and the moor, which knows what lies cost, let me borrow that debt. We reached the ruts. The white stopped, not angry, not thwarted, only thinking. At the pub, we burned the last reel to keep our hands from shaking. The wire turned in a small, satisfied hiss, then slackened. Agnes watched in a way that forgave nothing and forgave everything. You'll leave today, she said. A rule, not an offer. We will, I said. Will you come back? She asked. I looked at the window. Outside, the sky had forgotten how to be blue. When the weather's right, I said, and we all heard the lie. I have not gone back to Drumlene Moor, but the fog has come to me. In bathrooms, when steam learns the exact pitch of my father's apology. In alleys where a bus exhales in a voice that could be hers. In winter mornings when white sits low and listens. It taught me this. Every breath is a bargain. You pay for the ones you take. You pay more for the ones you take when a dead voice asks you to. If you listen to the recording we smuggled out, if you breathe along with the hiss, you'll hear it near the end. My voice, a version of it, saying a thing I never said. It's your turn. So I keep speaking. I keep telling this, night after night, to people whose names I'll never know. Because telling is a kind of rope. Because edges matter. Because white can learn, but it can also be taught. And if you ever find yourself on a moor where the fog knows you're dead, remember the only sentence that saved me, the one that isn't no and isn't yes. say very gently to the whiteness that listens, "Not yet."